I'm Kurt. This is my space. Let's try a little more reading from my book, Man in the Desert. This man hunts peyote for a living. He's got two fainting goats. One of them has a rare talent, and it's a funny little story. There seemed to be some confusion and consternation in this band of merry men and perhaps women, as no one pried too deeply into the other's character or identity. It was clear the dangerous-looking man who was leading them to the safe house on the U.S. side of the border had disappeared during their siesta, taking with him the best chance of a new life and most of their money. After much cussing and discussing, whimpering, kicking at small cacti for which they were immediately sorry, and throwing rocks and threats in the general direction of South America, they decided to carry on. Two teenage brothers, however, were so furious at this betrayal, they were going back. They were going to find this jackal, take back their money, and tie him to an anthill. This talk of bravado and revenge lightened the mood of the entire group, and they bid the brothers adios and good luck. Then headed in a direction that might be north, though there was no consensus on this. The brothers turned and headed back in the direction almost completely not opposite to the departing companions, debating as they attempted to retrace their steps, whether it would be better to stuff items into the cheating coyote's mouth that normally did not belong there, or simply let him scream his lungs out as the flaming mesquite started to pop and crackle about his head, as burning mesquite will always do. He will not expect us to come back after him, Jesus said. With two of us, we can. And at that moment, a most distressing sound came bleeding through the early night and turned the brothers to stone. They only moved their eyes as they shot looks at each other and into the darkness. What the hell was that? Ramos whispered, afraid that speaking too loudly would be an open invitation to their own slow, agonizing death. Chupacabra, whispered Jesus. There's no such thing, answered Ramos. Tell that to him, replied Jesus. You should not have said those bad things, said Jesus. It was you who said you would tie him naked to an anthill, replied Ramos defensively. And it was you who said you would cut off his cojones and stuff them in his mouth and set his head on fire, said Jesus. Meanwhile, the 9 that had continued on did not freeze when they heard a noise that none of God's creatures were capable of making, even when dying. No, instead, they began running like blind gazelles trying to escape a hungry lion, fleeing and crashing through stands of mesquite, stumbling over rocks and cactus, suddenly losing contact with the earth entirely for a few curious moments, only to be reintroduced to it abruptly at the bottom of a dry wash. The horrible noise was replaced by moans and groans, cries, whimpers, and panic surrendering to the terrible death that was surely upon them. More to come. Man in the Desert.